I want to say just a few words about Mesopotamian law. And what I'm going to do is talk about broadly the legal aspect of cultural Mesopotamia. We're going to see that one big important part of cultural Mesopotamia, and that's where the Hebrew people live, the Hebrews will develop a very different approach to law. But broadly speaking, the rest of Mesopotamia, the things I have to say will apply to it. The most famous example of Mesopotamian law that we have comes out of the old Babylonian Empire, and I alluded to this earlier in our video series, and that's the law code of Hammurabi. Hammurabi, the king, one of the emperors, I guess we should say, an emperor of the old Babylonian Empire. Here we see what's called a stele. That's just a fancy word that means a stone column with words on it, on which the laws are written. Hammurabi had these produced, carved in stone. You may remember I told you that stone was very valuable in the area of Sumer, the area of Mesopotamia, because there's not a lot of hard stone. There's a lot of mud, but not a lot of hard stone. But if you want to make laws, then you want to make them in the hardest thing you can. So these large rocks brought in and then inscribed with the laws. And here I have a view of the laws as they're written down there. The stele could be placed, let me go back, there we go. It could be placed in the cities so that everybody who knew how to read, at least, could go and look. And if you didn't know how to read, you could ask someone who knew how to read the laws to you. So there's nothing secret. There's no secret laws. Everything is out in the open. Here you also have an example just to look at, to whet your appetite. Here we have a look at the Sumerian alphabet that is used in the Babylonian language as a reminder that the Sumerization of the Mesopotamian world, the ancient Near East, was a constant, continual. Now, I called Hammurabi's law a law code. I mentioned this to you earlier in the video series. The word code here doesn't mean like a secret message, okay, passed between spies. The code, in a legal sense, means laws that are written down. When laws are written down, you see, you don't have to remember. You don't have to have people disagreeing about what the law is. You can go and look at what the words say and then decide what the law actually says. Now, one thing that is common, not universal, but common in Mesopotamian laws, is that there's no first principles. All right, there's no statement of legal truths or assumptions that are being made, and then the law develops from those principles. Think, for example, the Declaration of Independence, which announces that all men are created equal, that all human beings are created equal. Right? That's the first principle, and that's one of the founding ideals of the country. Not practices, as we're all aware, but the ideal, okay? And so you have a principle that you take, and then you draw out your practices from your principles. That's not the way the Mesopotamians thought about their law codes. My clicker's not working again. There we go. Sumerian law, Akkadian law, Babylonian law, and again we have examples of law codes from all of these civilizations, are what we call case law. Right? It's not like a reasoned from first principles to application, but instead examples of case law. When this happens, that happens. If this happens, that happens. If this happens, that happens. They're very practical laws. They apply to specific cases as things might happen. And very typical, again, not universal, but typical in Mesopotamian law, is that it's based on the law of retaliation, or sometimes called the law of retribution. And the famous phrase, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And if you look at Hammurabi's law codes, they contain these kind of case laws, all right? If someone knocks out your tooth, you get to knock out their tooth. If someone breaks your arm, you get to break their arm. If someone punches you in the eye, you get to punch them in the eye. If, a guy is driving a wagon and runs over your child, you get to take a wagon and run over their child. I mean, it's that, I would say, kind of horrible. But that's the foundation of Mesopotamian law. Not a lot of detail here, but I just want to give you some insights into the legal aspects. We'll be coming back to this topic when we talk about the Hebrew people and looking at how there's some differences in how the Hebrew people thought about law and how the broader Mesopotamian world thought about law.